everybody, welcome back to Garden Variety DIY. I'm Bree, and today we're going to be putting in some soaker hoses for my two 8x8 garden beds. I did get supplies to do a drip irrigation system, so if the soaker hoses don't work out, then I'll be posting a video about how to do drip irrigation. Okay, so I am using the Melnor flat soaker hose. It's a 5/8 by 50 feet. So that should work pretty well to snake around my 8x8 garden beds. I'll show you what they look like. I have two of them. So this is what it looks like. They got really good reviews, so it should work out. What I'm doing is I have taken, I'm sitting on top of it. This is the end that I'm gonna be connecting to the hose on my standpipe. And I'm just gonna snake it through each of the rows of plants so that it really hits the roots. Remember, you don't want to water the plant itself, you want to water the root system. When you don't give the root system an adequate supply of water regularly, then that's when you'll either start seeing it decay because it's not getting enough water, or you're gonna see it, it's not gonna fruit very well. It's gonna be kind of spotty on the fruiting because it's getting irregular water. So watering regularly and watering adequately are very important to getting healthy, fruiting, blossoming plants. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, it's hot out here today. So I went ahead and I snaked it all through the plants and made sure that they were near the base of the plant. The hardest part about this is the fact that I'm doing this late in the game. So if I had put my starts and seeds in and then laid a soaker hose, it would have been very simple. But I didn't realize just how hot and how fast. I didn't realize how quickly it got hot in Texas, and it stayed hot. I thought it was gonna be like a heat wave, and then I just realized in order to have a thriving garden, hand watering just really wasn't going to cut it. So I'm kind of doing this a little backwards, and I think it'll be beneficial down the line, but it is a little harder because walking in a garden bed is definitely a faux pas. You're not supposed to walk in your garden beds, but I don't really have a choice right now, so I just made sure to be careful and not to step on anything green. I don't think I was really in there heavy-footed enough or long enough to really compact the soil. I think it'll be fine, but I was aware that definitely not something I really wanted to be doing, but it needed to be done. So I did that. Now what I need to do is go ahead and use some garden stakes and just stake it down so that the soaker hose isn't moving around. If the wind blows, it doesn't move it, and I'm out here thinking that it's getting watered when really it's not. So gonna get some garden stakes, stake it down, and hook it up. All right, so I got some garden stakes. They look pitiful. I really thought I had ordered some nice new pretty garden stakes, but I actually used these when I made a temporary enclosure for my backyard bunnies. And as I pushed them into the ground with my foot, they started to bend because our soil is very thick, heavy clay. So hopefully most of them are straight, so we'll see how this works out. Hey everybody. Okay, so it's a couple days later. I had a snafu with one of my soaker hoses. So maybe 5 minutes after I hooked it up, one of them bursted. So that was probably user error. I think the water flow was just a little bit too high. So I had to go get a replacement one, but we are back in action now. So I just wanted to show you the finished result. Okay, so this is the standpipe that I had to buy to run water right up to my garden beds. Typically, I have a faucet on the other side of this gate. Now, this gate actually has a door where you can just, on this side, the left, to just open it and go through it. But the concrete must have settled before we bought this house, and we actually can't open that gate right now. So I usually run a hose from the faucet out there up to this standpipe. I'm currently waiting for another steel hose to come in, and I'll reroute that hose back to that faucet. They're the only hoses that are able to withstand constant pressure from here, because I leave that faucet on all the time so that when I come out to the garden, I can just turn it on from out here. And that constant pressure in the hose bursted one of the hoses that I had here. So the steel hoses are great. I use the bionic steel hose. I think AquaJoe also has one. I haven't used that. I kind of just stick to what I know. This, I am also, with that hose, I ordered another lead hose because this one is leaking, and obviously it's really hot and we need to conserve water. So this is just an old hose from the previous owners that was out the front. So I grabbed that and I used it because it had a Y connection, or two-way valve. So I have this one here hooked up to a soaker hose on my first garden bed, and as you can see, I weaved it all the way through, and they're all just around the base of the plants right here. And I used garden stakes for this to keep it in place. Now, this is a flat soaker hose, so that means when there's no water in it, it flattens. But you have to be careful not to put these too tight when you originally put them in, because if you do, then you could burst the hose. You could cause too much tension at these pinch points and break the hose. So just be mindful that you don't put them down too tight, just enough to keep them in place. And as you can see, this is what it looks like. And because these garden beds aren't quite that large, I can snake them all the way around, and even towards the end, you still get enough water pressure for it to work effectively. If you try to use it on too big of a square footage, it's not going to keep the same pressure all the way through the hose, and you will have some inconsistencies in your watering. Don't mind this. This is diatomaceous earth. I had some squash here. Okay, so we're gonna stop there because I had a squirrel moment and it started turning into a garden tour before I could even finish showing you the rest of the soaker hose situation. So let me do that and then we'll get back to the garden tour. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys what the end looked like. It has an end cap on it, just in case you were wondering, so you don't have to buy anything else that's fancy or any extra parts. It comes with it, so it just dead ends on its own. And I just snaked it back around. So it literally just weaves. I ended up weaving it back around to these beans up here, back around to hit. Literally, I don't even know what this is, I'm gonna be honest with you. It just volunteered itself and it hasn't really done anything. And I snaked it all the way back through, and it ends there. Now I told you I had 2 garden beds. So what I did here, let me go back. So it has a Y. So this first one goes straight to this first garden bed. Second one, I have a second steel hose. I love these things. I'm waiting for a standpipe to come in so I can get this off the grass. I don't want it to kill the grass. The grass is struggling enough. And then I connected it straight into my second one. And I just did the exact same thing. You can see it snaking around towards the base of all the plants. And you can just see it snaked all the way around. And where I replanted, it's right next to it so that those seeds still get enough water to germinate. And it goes all the way through the herbs, around the okra, and back down through the garden cherries. And that's where it caps. I have to see if I can tighten that because I don't think it's supposed to be pouring out like that. But for the most part, you know, I might just plant something there and then it'll be of use. And this one, I haven't had time to go get garden stakes yet, but for the most part, it hasn't been very windy, just hot and still. The wind blows as I say that, of course, but I haven't had any issues the last couple days, but I will be getting garden stakes down. But so you have it, that's my soaker setup. So from a faucet, it will be that one here soon, to the standpipe, to a lead hose, into a Y, straight into this garden bed, and then another one going through this bionic steel hose into the second soaker, and just weave it through. It really is that simple. It's kind of nice, and I'm really happy with it. So back to the garden tour. And it just started dying out of nowhere, and I couldn't figure out why. So I finally pulled it up, and an ant colony had made its home underneath in the root system of my squash plant. And I had to come in here with some diatomaceous earth and kill them so that I can replant something. But I pulled up the squash plant, and it like barely, it wasn't even connected anymore. They had worked their way through the entire stem of the plant. So I was pretty mad about that. And I also put down diatomaceous earth to protect the plants around it. But if you can see here, we have some life. So I'm pretty excited. Struggling here, here we go. So even though it's really hot, things are going our way for the most part. I made a DIY trellis out of chicken wire and garden stakes. I didn't realize this was gonna run as much as it was starting to. And the problem with leaving runners laying on the ground is, well, there's a couple of things. Ooh, we got a pollinator, yay. There's a couple of issues with that. So the first issue is that if it starts to bear fruit and it's laying on the ground, it's more susceptible to disease and funguses, insects, that kind of thing. So you really do want to keep runners off the ground. Another thing is airflow. If you don't get enough airflow, you can get things like powdery mildew. You can also keep pollination from happening if the pollinators can't see the flowers because they're all covered up and laying on the ground under the leaves. It's not going to pollinate and you're not going to get any fruit. So I went ahead, I made this trellis, very simple, and I just weaved the flowers or the leaves through so that the tendrils will start to pick it up and it'll learn that it needs to grow up that way. So it's going good over there. I'm pretty happy about it. I did, remember, I had some beans all along here. I ended up pulling those up because I did not stake those out well. Those were also runners, and it just wrapped around two plants, like wrapped around one single garden stake. And it was healthy, it was growing well, it was blooming, but I wasn't getting any beans from it. I think the plant was just too stressed out from being coiled so tightly around this garden stake. So I pulled them up. I popped some pole beans back in because in zone 8, although it's hot right now, I should still technically be able to sow some beans. So I re-sowed some beans there and just hoping that we get some more beans this year. But everything else is doing really well besides my tomatoes. My tomatoes have halted. It's just too hot, and once it gets into excessive heat, they'll stop bearing fruit. So even my plant that was doing really, really well, even though she's getting water twice a day, it's just, she's still got some fruit on her, but she's too hot. So I'm not expecting a whole lot from my tomatoes right now. Hopefully it'll start to cool down. I don't think that's really gonna happen. That's more like wishful thinking, but it could happen. And the other beans, they have snapped back from bunny damage, and we are getting lots of blooms. More beans. Look at this one. Lots of beans on her. Blue Lake beans are coming in. I really focused this year on beans, if you can't tell. I'm growing a lot of different varieties. I've decided that each season I want to focus on 1 or 2 crops, just really learn in depth the care that they need, the intricacies of that plant, the pH balance that they like in the soil, how much they like to be watered, that kind of thing. So you can really learn in depth how to really truly be a gardener instead of just putting seeds in the ground, watering it and hoping something happens. I think that's a great way to learn in the beginning. Just trial and error is a great way to learn, but to become a true savant or expert in what you do, you really have to learn the intricacies. So that's what I'm doing this year. And this season is all about beans. In the fall, it's going to be all about something else. I don't know. I haven't figured out exactly, maybe snap peas or something like that. But for right now, we're doing beans, and beans are doing really well. So I'm happy. Over here, we have our candy cane pepper plant. She's starting to produce a little bit. Got one down here. Growing pretty well. Oh, more beans on the back of this plant. I didn't even notice those. Have my kale. I'm surprised it's not gone to seed yet. Probably gonna go ahead and cut that. I did trim this one. She's growing back. I'm really surprised in this heat. Brassicas are more cold weather plants. I have my okra. She's growing. Oh, I think I'm finally starting to get a flower. See if I can zoom in. There we go. So I think we might start getting some okra here soon. Over here we have the echinacea. See all those that are starting to bloom? I can't wait for that to happen. She's gonna look great. A bergamot over here. Hyssop. Ground cherries. They've gotten big pretty quick. Still no fruit yet, but they're coming. See that? It's just a matter of time now. I also put some vinca over here, and also some rose moss. The flowers on this I think are really pretty, and when they die they have this really cool like melting effect. It's kind of like melts into the stem of the plant. It's really cool. So these are, I think, are actually, this and purslane I think are like my new favorite flowers right now. My nasturtiums, they're not very happy. They died back for the most part. The leaves, You come out here and weed this random kale that seeded itself. But it's just too hot. It's a little too hot for nasturtiums to be happy out here. But what is doing well, these noodle beans. These things are just exploding all over the place. And I love that you get different colored noodle beans. I had no idea, honestly. I started seeing these purple beans and I was like, what is that? But look, yep, they're just growing all over. So you can see some more down there. So for the most part, things are doing really well. The peppers, they're doing great in this heat. They're doing just fine. The peppers seem completely unbothered by the heat that's going on. And I'm very happy about that. Here's the Carmen Italian. That one hiding back there. This is my early flame. Peppers were one that I really struggled with. This is a year, remember I said I was learning 1 or 2 plants? This season was the year, this season was a season of peppers and beans. God, it's hot. I'm sweating on my lip. But for the most part, let's see what we have over here. My apple tree is holding in. I've been watering twice a day right at the base of the plant. Got some baby leaves going on here, so still trying to grow, but not loving this heat. And then peach tree, she seems to be doing pretty well. Some new life coming out on top. New leaves. So she's growing, she's green. I'm happy. She's happy, I'm happy. Oh, what's going on with my tomato plant? Gotta come back over here and hill it up a little bit. I don't know what happened here. She was just fine yesterday, but either way, she's growing well in this heat. I don't know if she'll produce any fruit, but I'll take what I can get for now. Strawberries, a little flower, and we're starting to get some berries. I think next year I actually want to do like an actual strawberry patch, because I think that'd be really cool and really fun for the kids. Blackberries, new life down here. For the most part, I think this blackberry is just setting roots still, but starting to get some activity. Blueberry plant, overall, it's actually doing really well. Still growing, taking their time. I don't expect to get any fruit from the trees or these blueberries or blackberries. Definitely not this season, they're just too young. This one is struggling. I might need to like aerate over here, because when I water over here, it just kind of pools on top. Like I said before, we have really heavy clay underneath. I did take the clay out of the holes and put garden soil and compost in it with a little fertilizer. So, I mean, she's still alive. not this side, but I think I might have to, I don't know, aerate it, or I should have put some perlite there, but we'll see. Stevia, this side's not doing too happy, but she's growing. I mean, she was definitely not this big a couple weeks ago, so we're doing well. I think I'm gonna come through here and mulch around so I don't keep having this issue. Basil, trying to go to seed. But this is purple basil. I think I'm gonna take this and some of the basil plant from the garden and make some pesto. Marjoram, growing, smelling good. Then there's the rue. This rue has been pissed off for like a couple weeks and she's finally trying to give up. So I might have to do a little more research on what exactly rue likes, because whatever it is, it's not what these guys like. Because they're, for the most part, they're happy. But that's what's going on here today. I just wanted to come back, show you guys what was going on in the garden. We have some good things with the beans, and the cucumber is coming in. My fruits, they're doing pretty well. So I think we're having a good, successful season even with this heat. So, oh, I have to show you guys my new no-dig garden. It's not done yet, but did a lot of work on it yesterday. I had an old garden bed from my first season here where I had no idea what I was doing last year, and it was horribly put together. So I tore that up and I put this in. I have some more moss rose over here. The house came with these stones, these decorative stones under the trees we have on the other side of the yard. So I actually used this to edge it up. And I have, see, this is how hot it is. I put this in yesterday and look at the cracking already. Good thing nothing is planted over there yet. But I do have some couple potatoes up here. This is mushroom compost and a little bit of cow manure. So we'll see what happens. But overall, I love the look of it. And this is kind of just an experiment to see what's going on. Underneath, I took up the, what is it? I took up the garden fabric, geez. I took up the garden fabric that was down here and I put down cardboard. And that way the cardboard blocks, it kills the grass underneath, and then it blocks any new weeds from growing. So essentially, in theory, you shouldn't have to weed at all. If you have to weed, it's probably because you missed a spot somewhere. But I'm pretty excited about this. I'm really excited to see what's gonna happen. It's really too hot right now to sow anything, so I'm not going to. I'm just gonna keep up with it, water it, till it, move it around, keep it amended so that by my fall, I'm ready to plant some things in here. And obviously, gotta take care of my flowers over there, but I'm really excited what's going on out here for the most part. Things are going really well, and I will keep you guys updated as new things occur. And I hope you guys like the water soaker. I think it's great so far. It's really helping me cut down on my time watering and water waste for the most part. Overall, very successful. So thanks for joining me today, and I'll be talking to you guys soon. Bye.